So I gave students a task. It's 4 different parts. So it starts off during February, Kevin will water his ivy every third day and water his cactus every fifth day. So part A, it asks on which date will Kevin first water both plants together. So first I just had the students think about it, talk about it with the neighbor or your group member. Then I gave them a calendar to actually look at February. Once they looked at the calendar, then some students started to write out, I don't know if you can see it, started to write on the calendar. So every 3 days, some people color coded it, which ultimately gave them the 15th because our topic was least common multiple. So then part B, it says, will Kevin water both plants together again on another day in February? So of course the answer should be no, because February only have 28 to 29 days. And on this calendar I used 2020, so it's only 29 days. But we had a good discussion about it where students said, they did say 30 initially. Well, it would the next least common multiple would be 30. But when we looked at February, they was like, oh, yeah, trick question. So then, sorry, I'm reading the question. So then I went on to part C because I wanted them to think deeper about the multiples. So I wanted to, if Kevin wants to water his rose bush, how often should he water it? So it can be on the same day as he waters the ivy and cactus. So of course some kids went straight into, well, he should just water it every 3 days, or he should also water it every 5 days. But I told them for part D, if you chose 5 or 3, choose another number. So then students were really stuck. Like, I don't know which number also have a multiple of 15, or which number also have a multiple of 30. So then students started writing down their multiples, and they noticed that 10 will work. So Kevin could water his rose bush every 10 days. And then some students also said, well, he can just water it every 30 days. Because 30 will also be a multiple for 3, 5, and, 30. So we had a good discussion about that. Of course, we got into, well, you don't want the plant to die and everything of that nature. So using the calendar was one modification that I made, and also just adding on to the days that really helps students think about the numbers. So I don't believe it was much of finding a pattern, but when we did have the discussion, some students did say, well, they were thinking about multiples of 5. So what's another multiple of 5 that will help me, or what's another number? They said similar to 5 that will give me like the same overlapping day. Or some students were saying, well, I need to think of another multiple of 3 that will help me get the same overlapping day. So when they thought about thinking about multiples of 5, I guess that was like the trend or pattern that they picked up on, which led them to use 10. And then they thought about, well, 20 didn't work, 25 didn't work, which also got some students to think about 30. So this was a good, so implementing this was, I think it was really good for the students, just thinking about the least common multiples and also thinking about it in a real world scenario. Instead of just thinking about, okay, the multiples of 3, we'll just skip counting. Think about the multiples of 5. And actually looking at it on a calendar, they were able to see how the numbers lapped up. And we also looked at like another scenario where the elementary school served pizza every 10 days and the middle school served pizza every 12 days. On which day of the month, or when will the middle school and elementary school serve pizza on the same day? So I guess that was a little more interesting for them, but they did enjoy it as well. So I do still have some student examples in their work that they laid out. So like this one student, yes, they said they would choose the 10th for letter D. Um, so then once this student here just said they would do it every 4 days, but I tried to get them to deep down and look, well, what would be like the least common multiple between 3, 4, and 5 if you did it that way. And when he thought about it, he was thinking, well, it would be a long way out. Thinking about the multiples for 4, because of course 4 and 5 will have the same multiple of 20. The least common multiple was 20, but 3 doesn't have it. So they was thinking, well, if I use 4, it wouldn't work because we'll run it into about day 60 or something, and the plant will probably really die. So that was an interesting find for the students. And I guess just also looking at that pattern, they was able to see the least common multiples that way. And it really started to have them think about it. And we had the discussion as well of, well, why didn't we find, because they were getting confused, they were looking at the greatest common multiple at first. And I said, well, if we're looking at the greatest common multiple, then we'll be watering the days like every 100 days. Can a plant, live that long? So I thought that was really interesting for the kids to use and think about it in a real world. It says the modifications and analysis of implementation in student work. So then also looking at student work. So then one student did equations where they double checked their answers. So they had 5 times 3, 3 times 5, 1 times 15, then 15 divided by 3. And then I'm just trying to look at some more examples. Because I think one student, okay, so this one student did the 7th. So he would water his rose bush in 7 days. Then in 3 days he would water ivy and the cactus. So this student also said water the rose bush every 7 days. I wish I would have saw this paper so I can help them think about it some more. Okay, so then again you can see them writing out their writing out their multiples. Writing out their multiples. Looking at the calendar. Multiples again. I don't really understand this one, but it helped them get to an answer of 15. I remember when we talked about this one in class. And then some people just stuck with the 3rd and 5th day because they thought it would just be easier to do it that way, watering the rose bush. Yep, so that's about it. I do believe it was really effective for the students. They did find a pattern of thinking about multiples of 5, multiples of 3. I tried to figure out another way to try to algebraify it, but just thinking about the multiples and the factors, it was a little challenging. But I thought about it. Well, with the rose bush, what would give me what's another number that would help it overlap?